traders from whichever side of the country world you're watching me from. Welcome to today's morning market call. My name is Ian Joseph, market analyst at HFM. A quick disclaimer before we do begin: the information herein is only meant for educational and informative purposes only. None of it should be construed as investment advice. Trading the financial markets do carry a degree of risk, but do not worry, I'm here to help you look at the markets the right way. Now, moving over to our morning market call, I would want to share with you about the Shield 500 account, whereby you have an opportunity to open a Shield 500 account. Now, quite interesting thing about, let's look at this video first of all.
Introducing the HFM Shield 500 account, a revolutionary new account specifically for new traders. Within your first 25 days, trade with a peace of mind knowing up to $500 in losses are fully covered as tradable funds. It is your chance to learn, practice, and grow with confidence. Ready to kickstart your trading journey? Sign up today and deposit within the first 10 days to get full access to this exclusive offer. Click below to get started, only with HFM.
Yes, sir, you heard that right, whereby you have an opportunity to open the Shield 500 account. Whatever losses you're doing within the first 25 days, we are going to refund you up to $500. Quite interesting looking at it. Now, we do have a couple of webinars whereby today I'm going to start a new session with you, whereby at exactly 7 p.m. GMT plus 3, this is local East African time, I'm going to get you started with HFM, how to learn Forex trading the right way, whereby it's going to be in the next 8 hours, 52 minutes and count. Yes, you heard that right, whereby you have an opportunity to open the Shield 500 account, whereby whatever losses you do incur within the first 25 days, we are going to cover you up to $500. We have a question from It's Lord. How long will the Shield 500 be available? Utilize the opportunity right now. This is the time for you to capitalize on the Shield 500. Now, not only that, we do have a few promotions currently ongoing also, especially the Score and Draw, whereby you have an opportunity to win a brand new BMW 4 Series. Not only that, you're going to have also an opportunity for an all expenses paid trip for 2 flights, accommodations, match tickets. How do you join? You go over to the HF, whereby register under the promotions, Score and Draw, click and join, trade and earn points, and then you're going to have an opportunity to allocate the points across different draws for exclusive prizes. Once again, we are going to have the draw for the BMW 2025 4 Series. We are going to have the UK Premier League trip for 2 55-inch TVs. We are going to have 20 winners walking home with jerseys of their favorite team, and 60 people are going to be credited $200 each onto their accounts. We are going to have monthly draws, whereby the next one is going to be in the next 20 days, 14 hours and counting. Now, moving over to the morning market call, whereby we do have earnings season still underway, and what company I would want to look at is Nvidia, who's going to release their earnings next week on Wednesday. Also, Walmart are going to release their earnings. HP are not going to be left behind. Also on the 24th, towards the end of this month, we do have a lot of companies still releasing their earnings, and this is something quite interesting. We are seeing the S&P 500 move to the upper side. As a trader, how can I capitalize on these opportunities? Now, starting off with the economic calendar, this is whereby I usually start my day generating ideas. We look at the high probability setups and ask ourselves, okay, what does this mean for me as a trader currently at the moment? Now, looking at it, we do have CPI numbers coming in at exactly it did come in yesterday at 4:30, whereby the inflationary numbers have been peaking to the upper side. The previous number was negative 0.3%. We were looking at a consensus of 0.0%, but we're actually seeing inflation peak to the upper side, whereby it did come in at 0.2%. I would want us to look at an article whereby what does this mean for the Chinese yuan? Now, Beijing, this was November the 9th, the CPI numbers, which is the main gauge for inflation, was up 0.2% year on year in October of 2025. On a monthly basis, once again, the CPI also did rise 0.2%. Now, the core CPI, which is the most important one, excludes food and energy prices, did increase by 1.2% year on year, marking the 6th consecutive month of acceleration in growth pace. Now, why is this information important? Now, when you look consumer price index. Basically, it's telling us how consumers are buying. Now, if there are more people purchasing, it means there are more Chinese yuans in circulation, which means the currency is expected to be stronger. But on the other hand, if the inflationary numbers come out really low, we do anticipate the country is headed into deflationary measures, whereby not a lot of currency is moving in circulation, and this is anticipated to be weaker for that specific currency. Now, moving back to the economic calendar, today is going to be a relatively quiet day, looking at there is no major news releases, but I would want us to look at recent developments with the United States of America. Currently, as it stands, today is day 40 of the government shutdown. Now, looking at it from this perspective, what does this mean? Yesterday, we had the Senate advancing funding bill to end the longest US government shutdown in history. Quite interesting. Now, what does this bill entail? How is it going to affect us as traders? Let's look at the data. Now, what to know on day 40? It's going to be day 40. 8 Democrats joined the Senate Republicans late Sunday night in voting to advance a House-passed short-term funding measure, the first step in several weeks toward ending the government shutdown. Now, 14 previous Senate votes fell short of the 60 votes that was needed to move the legislation forward. Though more hurdles remain, the vote does pave way for an end to the shutdown as early as this week. Quite interesting. The breakthrough came as GOP leaders pursued a different strategy, one which would allow the resolution to be amended to include 3 longer-term appropriations bill, as well as an extension of the short-term stopgap measure passed by the House in September. Now, this bill was supposed to be extended till November 2021, but currently, as it stands, the extension will run through January. It's going to be exactly 30th of January, whereby this extension is going to be effective. Now, we are looking at it from this perspective. Yes, they are looking at reopening the government, but this is a short-term extension that we are looking at. It's not going to be permanent, whereby currently at the moment, it is day 40, 10 hours and counting ever since the government has been shut down. Now, bill is yet to be passed to Parliament and then be taken to the table for Mr. Donald J. Trump to sign it into bill. Now, this was the only bill on the table one of the Democrats did mention. Now, looking at it from this perspective, there was zero chance of dealing with the Affordable Care Act, which was the biggest point of conflict, whereby Obamacare, the Democrats and Republicans have been really fighting against it, especially the Republicans, whereby they did want to do away with the Affordable Care Act, but the Democrats wanted this to continue going on further. Now, they have just passed the 60 votes that they needed to advance this bill, but once again, this is just an extension. Yes, there's a possibility that the government is going to be reopened soon, but the question is for how long? Suleiman, welcome to the stream. Victoria, welcome to the stream. Once again, if you have any asset that you would want me to look into, kindly put it in the chat section. I'll be glad to be of help. Now, looking at it from this perspective, we have been seeing quite an interesting amount of activity ever since the markets has opened during Asian session. For me as a trader, how can I utilize this opportunity? Now, once again, we do have the Shield 500, whereby you have an opportunity to open an account within the first 25 days. Whatever losses you do incur, we are going to refund you up to $500. Now, the score and draw currently at the moment is active. Before we do go over to the video, looking at the next FOMC meeting, it's going to be in the next 30 days, 11 hours and counting, whereby looking at the statistics, ever since last week, the probabilities of having an interest rate hold where it is currently at the moment between 375 to 400 basis points has jumped up from 33.1% to 37.1%, whereas the probabilities of having lower interest rates in the next 30 days are actually coming down, whereby currently as it stands, this is 62.9% chance. What is this going to affect the markets? Only one way to find out. Now, towards the end of the year, we usually see a lot of activities, especially in the stock market, and we do anticipate the volatility to still come in very, very aggressively. Once again, today is day 10, meaning we have just started 2 of November. We still have this week, next week, and the week after. So those are 3 weeks of November whereby we do anticipate a lot of volatility, meaning there's an opportunity for you to trade and points. And I would want to look at this whereby the score Beautiful, beautiful. We do have a BMW M4 series up for grabs. Looking at it, not only that, you're going to have an opportunity for an all trip paid for expenses, whereby a trip for two of your choice. If you are an Arsenal fan, it's going to be in the Emirates. If you're a Manchester United fan, it's going to be Old Trafford. Whichever team of your choice, you're going to have an opportunity to go for a paid trip for two. Not only that, we are going to have 455-inch TVs being given away, and also 60 people are going to be credited at least $200 into their account. Last week, we did give away more than $6,000 to you, the traders, for making this possible. I would want us to go over to the charts. This is the most interesting point, whereby how do we piece in this information? Looking at OM3 XAUSD, and that is the asset I would want to start with, the precious metal, gold's money, essentially. Now, looking at it from this perspective, very interesting. If I can start with a clear chart, let me delete some of these lines that I do have. Now, gold did make a massive retracement. This was mid last month, whereby prices did move to the downside, almost 11% to the downside, going well 1,888, which was a psychological level. Now, interesting is whereby prices started consolidating towards the end of the month. For the past 200 hours or so, prices of gold has been consolidating. Quite interesting. But looking at Asian session today, prices have moved aggressively to the upper side. If I can expand my chart here, whereby if I can highlight ever since this candlestick, this was Asian open today to where we currently are. In the past 8 hours, prices has moved more than 765 pips to the upper side. This is almost 2% of the total value of gold. Currently, as it stands, prices are trading well above the 14-period moving average. I would consider looking at more net long opportunities, and this is the result of the funding that is supposed to be passed. Yes, we are anticipating that the government is going to reopen very soon, but we're looking at it on a longer perspective. This is just a band-aid. This is just a temporary solution, because come January 30th, they do anticipate the entire activity to start up over again. Now, looking at gold is digesting this data positively, whereby once again we haven't had any bearish candle ever since the markets did open. We have just entered a pre-London session, whereby we do anticipate more volatility in the markets. If I can pull a Fibonacci from this low to this high, if prices do retrace back onto the golden retracement region, which is going to be on the 14-period moving average, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities above potentially prices heading back to 4,157, which is a psychological level looking at it from my perspective. Now, silver is not left behind. Silver is gold's younger brother, whereby currently at the moment, silver is almost trading above $50 an ounce. If we do close well above this region, which was a region of resistance that we were looking at last week, whereby currently as it stands, this was the high that was created back on 31st of October. Prices are closing well above that region of resistance. I would consider looking at more net long opportunities, potentially prices coming to fill in the inefficiencies that we have residing. There's a high probability $52.7 an ounce could be a probable target in the next few trading days. Quite interesting how the markets are digesting this data. Moving over to equities, whereby starting with the 500 ever since Asian Open. If I can start with Friday's price action first, let's look at this here, whereby prices did open on Friday, moved aggressively to the downside, but before the day did conclude, we had buyers coming into the market, closing almost exactly where the markets did open on that Friday. This shows that even though sellers tried to push the markets to the downside, buyers did come back, drive the prices to the upper side. And looking at Asian session today, we did see prices gap to the upper side almost 0.47%, and currently as it stands, prices are trading well above the opening price of the daily candle. If we do get a candlestick that closes well above 6,794, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities on the S&P 500, potentially prices coming back to 6,838, which is a quite decent amount of range. But be careful, because today is a Monday. the weekly candle has just opened. We still have a few more days trading on the weekly perspective, but looking at it, we have more than 4,500 points of range, which is almost 0.6% of the total value of prices potentially heading back to the upper side. Now, the equities are digesting this information positively. Looking at also the Nasdaq, whereby prices did retrace off the Fibonacci level. If I can zoom out my chart from this swing low, let me move to a H4 time frame so that my chart could be much more visible. On this 4-hour time frame, whereby from this swing low to this swing high, we did make an impulse to the upper side. I did anticipate prices coming back into the golden retracement region on the Fibonacci. Look at how this candlestick just closed shy above the 50 region on the Fibonacci, signaling that this could have been an impulse, a correction, and prices could potentially head back to the upper side. If you do get a candlestick that closes well above these highs that was formed during Asia, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities on the Nasdaq. Yes, we do have Nvidia releasing their earnings next week on Wednesday. Quite interesting because they do account for a majority of the Nasdaq, the weight of the Nasdaq. And if it does come out positive, I do anticipate prices to continue moving further to the upper side. Potentially, if we do close above 25,530, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities on the Nasdaq. The US 30 also is not left behind. I was looking at a Fibonacci level from this swing low to this swing high. Potentially prices do come back to retest where we had a golden crossover on the moving average. Prices did retrace onto that region on the 50. I would consider looking at more net long opportunities on the Dow Jones. Now, whatever is happening currently at the moment is not only bullish for the United States, but looking at also the Nikkei 225, ever since Asia did open, we have been seeing prices trade well above the 14-period moving average. And as you can see, we did move quite significantly ever since Friday's closing price to where we are currently at the moment. The Nikkei 225 is up almost 1.22%. This was more than 6,143 points to the upper side. I do anticipate prices to continue moving further to the upper side on the Nikkei 225. Germany is also not left behind. Looking at the FTSE, whereby we did see quite an interesting amount of activity, whereby prices on this Fibonacci, the Fibonacci has been working marvelously over the past few weeks, whereby if the markets are trending, this is a potential tool that can help you look at potential retracement regions on price action, whereby prices did open here on Friday. If I can bring my crosshair, look at how prices did open on Friday, move to the downside. Sellers drove the markets to the downside, but towards New York session, we had buyers aggressively moving the markets to the upper side, almost 1% to the upper side. And when Asian session did open today, we did see prices gap to the upper side. Now on the FTSE, we did see prices retrace, filling the inefficiencies, close well above that gap, and currently at the moment we are trading well above 9,767. It is currently pre-London once again, and I would anticipate prices to continue moving further to the upper side. 17 personas settings on the Fibonacci level. Let me pull it up for you. So I only look at okay, here it is. So these are my settings on the Fibonacci, whereby I have the 0, the 50% region, the 61.8, and the 100. So I usually drag it from a swing low to a swing high. These are the only retracement regions, and I like to pay attention to the 50 and the 61.8. On the Fib tool, how do you define the retracement region? Once again, the golden retracement region is the 50 and the 61.8. Hello, Christina. Welcome to the chat section. 21 Forrester wants us to look at BTCSD. Okay, we shall look at Bitcoin in just a moment's time. But once again, this is my parameters on the Fibonacci level currently as it stands. Let me pull up a chart of Bitcoin. I will look at BTC towards the end. Now, looking at the dollar index, it did tank to the downside last week, Friday, but closed slightly below the opening price of Friday. Once again, at the moment, prices is trading above the 14-period moving average on the dollar index. I would want to see how prices do trade towards New York session, whereby if we do have candlesticks that close well above this region, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities on the dollar. But if prices do continue moving further to the downside, then I will continue looking at selling opportunities on the dollar. I would want to look at GBP USD. Where are you? Here it is. Now, the British pound against the dollar. Last week on Friday, we did identify this region of resistance at 1.31362, whereby prices did close well above that region, formed a high. Currently, as it stands, I do anticipate these are my regions of interest, whereby if we do get a candlestick that closes above 1.31756, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities to that side. But selling is looking much more realistic currently at the moment, whereby we are having a crossover on the moving average. If this candlestick closes well below 1.31362, I would consider potentially prices moving back to these lows that was formed around 1.30101, which is a psychological level, almost 120 pips to the downside. Lil Dante, am I late for gold? Yes, but don't worry. These sessions are usually updated to our YouTube channel before midday, whereby you have an opportunity to look at the markets and replay it as much as possible. Not only this, we do update it each and every day. 17 personas were lies, you. Don't worry. Zoom in your screen. The chef 32 XAU euro. We'll look at that in just a few moments' time. Once again, looking at the British pound against the dollar, we would anticipate looking at selling opportunities upcoming this week. We do anticipate CPI numbers coming later this week, inflationary numbers, whereby we do anticipate inflation to peak to the upper side in the United States region. Quite interesting, noting how that's going to affect price action. Moving back to Asian session, whereby the Australian dollar against the United States dollar, we still do have this swing low being forming on the markets, whereby I would want to see how prices are going to react between the 50 and the 61.8 region. If you do get signs of bears coming into the markets, I would consider looking at selling opportunities on the Australian dollar against the United States dollar. Looking at commodities, starting off with black gold, the US oil. Beautiful retracement on the Fibonacci level. Once again, beautiful tool. This is whereby prices did make from this swing low to this swing high. Prices did move aggressively to the upper side. We have been having a correction whereby prices do move by impulses and correction. This was a correction on price action, whereby if I can highlight this downward trend line, if we do close above this trend line, as we have already rejected the golden retracement region, I will consider looking at potentially more opportunities to the upside. Now, looking at oil, there's a few things I would want to highlight, whereby number one, currently as it stands, this is the season for maintenance for the oil rigs, whereby the oil rigs do operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And towards this period, this is whereby they lubricate the machines. And this is the season whereby we do see the uptake of gold from the ground reducing. Now, this is very important. Why? Also, at this particular moment in time, as we are heading into winter, this is whereby it gets cold for countries who are in extreme hemispheres. Let's look at Canada, for example, the United States. Europe also is not going to be left behind, whereby as it gets cold, usually the uptake for energy increases. Now, the demand usually rises to the upper side, and seasonality speaking, we usually see prices of oil moving to the upper side. Looking at it currently at the moment, we are trading above $60 a barrel, which is a magic number for oil prices. For new wells to be dug, oil prices has to be trading above $60 a barrel. Currently, at the moment, as it stands, I will look at $63 a barrel as a potential target. If we do close above this trend line, potentially prices moving further to the upside. Looking at it from the trend line to this high, this is almost a 4% move to the upper side, almost 243 points to the upper side, which is quite a decent amount of range whenever I'm looking at US oil. US oil and UK oil are positively correlated, meaning if one does move to the upper side, the other one does follow suit. Looking at the dollar against the Chinese yuan, quite interesting. We have seen CPI numbers coming in positive for the Chinese yuan, but looking at the manufacturing sector, it is quite worrying, whereby they are not producing as much as they used to. And looking at the USD against the Chinese yuan, I would want to go to a higher time frame, potentially on a daily time frame, whereby the dollar has been losing against the Chinese yuan ever since March of this year. But looking at it currently at the moment, could we have found support around this region of 7.08792, whereby as it stands, yes, the dollar is still gaining strength against most of the assets, and we did have a beautiful 3 candlestick chart pattern whereby we had bears in the markets, but we had a doji candlestick forming and we had signs of buyers coming into the market, and the markets did close almost exactly at the opening price of last month. Quite interesting. As it stands right now, we are retesting on the 14-period moving average. If prices do close below this region, I would consider prices moving back down to this region of support. But if this candlestick does flip bullish, closing above this range, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities above 7.12651, which is an interesting amount of range, whereby looking at the next potential target could be last month's highs, whereby if I can pick a tool here to measure the range, this is almost 260 pips to the upper side. Abdallah sioni share hata zoom. Are you sure? Sorry about that. Shout out to Enoch Mbaraga, Sajis Kalomu Gira, and Levi the Great. 611. Welcome to the street. And Tara wants us to look at GBP, JPY, the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. Now, last week we had the the MPC voting for interest rates. So is GJ? I don't believe I have JPY somewhere here. Where is it? We did have the MPC voting, and most of the members voted to hold interest rates. 3 members wanted to lower interest rates, and I would want to look at this information. Ask myself, how is this going to affect price action? Where's GBP, JPY move to? Here you go. Now, the Japanese economy, I want us to look at from these 2 perspectives. Starting off with the British region. Now, inflation is still present in the British region, and this week we do anticipate employment numbers for the British region. It's going to be tomorrow, actually. Yeah, it's going to be tomorrow at exactly 10 a.m. East African time. We do have the climate count change for the British region, whereby the previous number was 25,800 jobs that were added to the United Kingdom. But currently, as it stands, we are only anticipating 20,000 jobs to be added. The actual number has not yet been released. Looking at unemployment, we anticipate unemployment to tick to the upper side, whereby the previous number, the 3 months to October, the numbers were at 4.8%. We are having a consensus of 4.9%. The actual number, if it does come out higher than 4.9%, it means that, okay, the job market in the United Kingdom is not doing that good, and we do anticipate selling opportunities on the British region. But on the other hand, if it does come out positive, it means that the British region is expected to move to the upper side, because if more people are going to be employed, it means more money will be in circulation. Now, looking at it from this perspective, the Japanese region, Takaichi just rolled out a stimulus program whereby a lot of money is supposed to be moved into people's pockets in the Japanese region. Why? Because the economy is slowing down, and they want to stimulate the economy by releasing funds into the economy. Now, if this does happen, we do anticipate the Japanese yen to be stronger. Why? Because there are going to be more Japanese yens in circulation compared to the British pounds. Now, looking at this price action, we did have a gap last month, looking at it on a daily perspective. For the greater part of last month, prices did consolidate. Towards the start of this month, this was last week's price action, we did see bears moving down quite aggressively, and this was news releases on the British region. But currently, as it stands, we are having buyers coming into the markets. As it stands currently at the moment, we are looking at prices potentially breaking the highs of this month, whereby if I look at this opportunity, if we do close well above this region, then this means that, okay, buyers are still in control over this market. I do anticipate prices to move to the upper side. If tomorrow's numbers does come out positive for the British region, whereby more people are going to be employed and unemployment goes to the downside, I do anticipate this to be positive for the economy. Looking at the Japanese yen currently at the moment, now trade balance did come out last week. No, it was towards the end of last month, whereby we did see actually the Japanese economy importing more than they did export. Quite worrying, whereby looking at the Japanese region, they do depend more on exports. If Japan is not selling Toyotas, if Japan is not selling Hondas, if Japan is not selling Kawasaki's, it means that, okay, things are not headed in the right direction. And this is because of the global impact of where we are seeing the economy not headed in the right direction. When you look at the United States, they are the biggest consumers of goods and services from Japan region. Now, as it stands at the moment, the economy in the United States, in Europe also, is not doing that good, whereby the Japanese are not selling as much as they used to. We are anticipating a weaker Japanese economy in the near future, and we would want to look at, is Japan going to increase interest rates in the near future? Currently, as it stands, they did hold interest rates. Takaichi is a fan favorite of having lower interest rates. This is going to be quite interesting in the next few weeks, whereby what will Bank of Japan do as a result of all of this information? Looking at GBP, JPY, I would consider looking at how price action is going to play out at the moment. If you do close well above that region, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities on GBP, JPY. If I can highlight the highs that was formed, it's at 202.834, whereby if I go down to a 1 hour time frame, highlight that price region. If you do close above this region, I would consider looking at more net long opportunities to the upper side. Whereas on the other hand, if you do have a candlestick, there's a possibility this candlestick might weak to the upper side. So the key word here is this candlestick breaks to the upper side and closes well above 202.834, then it means that buyers are in complete control over these markets. But if you do have a candlestick that breaks to the upper side but closes below this range, then I would consider waiting for more news releases, especially tomorrow, whereby we do anticipate the unemployment data for the Great British region. Now, we do have a few events coming up, whereby we are still on Rift Valley. If you can go over to our website, under the events section. Now, I do have classes starting today till 14th of November. You have an opportunity to register now. It's going to be the Oval Building, Westlands, 5th floor. Hello, Lucy. Looking at next week, also we are going to have, next week and the week after, we are going to have also physical classes. Then Kericho, we are coming for you, whereby on the 25th and 26th of November, we are going to be at the Sunshine Hotel from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Click on the register now to book your slot. Then Eldoret, my hometown, whereby we are going to come to you on the 27th and 28th of November at the KVDA auditorium. Quite interesting, looking at how that's going to unfold. Once again, register for your seat at the moment. Go over to the tools and education segment, then under the learn to trade and events section, then we are going to conclude with the Kitale, whereby on the 29th and 30th of November at the Pazuri Hotel in Kitale. Short Girl Shiku, hello, welcome to the stream. That's going to be it for me. I shall see you when you see me next. Stay safe, take care of yourselves. Risk management is going to be the most important thing. There are opportunities each and every day when you wake up. The markets will never stop moving. The most important thing for a trader is to ensure you do have an account. I'll see you when you see me next.